Welcome to Aisha.Academy, and today we're going to be going through frequency polygons. So they're a type of graph, so let's get right into it. Okay, so frequency polygons are basically a type of statistical graph that we use in maths, and it's a way of showing frequencies of group of data on a graph. So an example, so I'm going to draw a table. So in an exam situation, you would probably see a table like this that I'm about to draw, where you'll have something like weight, height, shoe size, I don't know, class size, in terms of like number of year 7, so on, or age groups or whatever, compared to the frequency. So you'd have groups of data and the frequencies in that particular group. So in this example, I'm looking at weight. So this could be literally like a weight of a bag of apples or whatever. So in terms of how we write it down, you tend to write with the lower number of that group, aka class interval, which is what we call it in maths, and then the highest number. Don't worry too much about remembering how to write this structure, as in the exam, they're most likely to give it to you. And in this scenario, I'm just writing down the frequencies for each individual class. Again, you're not expected to know the frequencies or work out the frequencies. You'll be given these values in an exam scenario. So I'm just coming up with an example to help us with this frequency polygon dilemma. So this is our table. So we're going to call this a frequency table, right? And then here we've got our graph. So you always put the class interval as the x-axis, and then your frequency will always be the y-axis. I remember it because frequency has a y in it, so y-axis. Then we're just going to be plotting down the different values of our class interval. So the 10, the 20, the 30, the 40, and the 50. And then we're going to be plotting on our values for the frequency. So these would vary as well based on the values that you have in your specific question. But most of the time in exams, they're quite nice to already label these things for you. They just want you to draw the frequency polygon. But for the sake of this example, I'm just coming up with something. So this is our graph. So how to fill it in? Step 1, you need to work out the midpoint of the class intervals. So as I mentioned, the column on the left is where your class interval is. And to work out the midpoints, you're basically working out the middle values of each interval. So for instance, the first one between 10 and 20 is going to be 15. The second one, the midpoint of 20 and 30 will be 25, and so on. So you need to work out the midpoints of every single class interval. And I'll explain why this is important. Step 2 is now you're going to jot the points onto the graph, but you need to jot it where you have the midpoints at each class interval and the frequency. So notice now when we're plotting it on the graph, we're plotting it at the midpoints and the frequency of that class interval. Then you're just going to draw a straight line to connect all the points. And this is why we call it a frequency polygon, because it looks like a shape. And that's it. And then last bit is something called the modal class interval. So we know mode from maths means most common. So it's your class interval with the highest frequency. So in this scenario, it's the 40 to 50 because I had a frequency of 27. So how you write your answer is you literally write your answer how the class interval is written. So you would write it exactly out, and that is it. That's all you need to know about frequency polygons. So now we're just going to go into practice questions to just consolidate our understanding. So example 1. Here is a typical question. Here's a table that I drew like earlier, and it wants us to draw the frequency polygon. So first thing is we need to work out the midpoints of all of the class intervals and write them out. Sometimes it's nice when you write a column on the side, just so you remember the midpoint so you don't forget it. So we're just going to write them all out. And then next you're going to plot the points on the graph. And remember, when you're plotting on the graph, your x-axis is your midpoint and your y-axis is your frequency for each coordinate. And then the last bit is that you're going to connect all the lines together. So it's really important for it to be a straight line to each point, and notice how it forms this shape, but never connects the first and the last points together. Example 2. So again, same as the previous question. So the first thing that we want to do is that we're going to end up drawing our table for our midpoint of the class interval. So it's the same pattern. Write out your midpoints, plot it on the curve, and connect the lines with straight lines. So we're just working out the midpoints. Then plot them onto the graph. Then draw a straight line connecting all of the dots together. And then example 3. So in this question, it wants us to work out the modal class. So remember, this is the interval with the highest frequency. So in this scenario, it would be the 50 to 60. So then you just write it how the class interval is written, just to get your 4 marks. That is literally it. And then we're going to draw the frequency polygon for this particular question. So we're going to again draw our nice neat table of our midpoint. So remember, work out the midpoints of each class interval. And then plot all the points onto the graph. And then connect them all together with a straight line. And that's literally it on frequency polygons, guys. So I hope that was really useful, and thanks for watching.